everyone, this is John with Front Range Anglers, and today we're going to be doing a super cool, super classic pattern, the Clouser Minnow in a olive variant. In the vise, I have a Gamakatsu SL11 3H. I like tying them on these hooks, and it's in a size 4. And then also for the dumbbell eyes, we have some painted lead eyes in medium and in the color red. So I already kind of put the eyes on there in the thread. I basically just did a few X wraps on top and everything to lock in those eyes. Left me a little bit of room in the front so I can tie down the bucktail on our materials. But we're gonna start with that thread just right in front of our red eyes. And we're going to get a piece of white bucktail to start. When I get my bucktail for these specifically, I like to go a little bit thinner. So I don't have mine crazy thick. Something just like that, and then I still thin it out. So I just grab, one of the top pieces where I kind of want those fibers to really be and just pull, and you'll get a lot of those loose fibers out. So kind of thinning out that bucktail, and you'll see it gets a lot thinner than even when I initially showed, something like that. And I'm going to lay this up top. Lengthwise, I ideally want it to be about 2 body lengths, if not just a little bit longer, but I don't get too crazy specific with it. I just kind of eyeball it a little bit until I think it looks right. I put the bucktail at a nice angle, tie it in tight right in front, and I might kind of twist these fibers, pull them upwards to make sure they're kind of poking up top. And I just go in, trim those all off for the most part. One thing you can also do, and you might get a few thin ones that come out of that, just fine. Do a few wraps behind those eyes, just to kind of lock that in place for now. Trim up the top to make sure we're going to have a good area to tie in at. Something just like that. And then when I actually tie this bucktail back, I'm going to pull it up in the middle to make sure it's laying flat down the hook shank. Just gonna do some cross wraps on the top of this to make sure it gets really locked down. Just like so. And then we're gonna go back up to the front and tie down all those front fibers. So now that we have those tied down, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is add a little bit of flash and touch for some gills that I personally like to do. The original pattern doesn't call for it, but it's one thing I've been doing and I like doing it. So I get a little bit of ripple ice fiber in pearly red. Stuff right here, just get a few strands of it. And I'm going to tie this in right behind the eye, so when this fly actually rides in the water with the hook point up, this will kind of look like a little gill accent. So I just do like one turn, make sure it's kind of on there, and I'll get it all centered from that point. Do one more to tighten it down. Just like so. Then I'm going to grab all those fibers, pull them back, and make sure it's centered again. Just do some wraps now to really tighten it down, get it right on top of the head. I'm going to do one wrap behind them just to prop them up, just like that. Try to make sure most of that red is covered for the most part. And then I'm going to trim these pretty short, just put it at a 45. Just want a nice little accent there. It's just a nice little touch I personally put in mine. Then we're going to get our thread going above the eyes, and we're going to flip it upside down to get ready to tie in our flash. Now for this pattern and colorway, I really like doing a Bonefish tan in, oh goodness, Krystal Flash, there it is. And I get about anywhere between 4 to 6 strands. We're gonna tie these in. I check the back length to make sure that they're gonna reach far enough. And then I personally just like to set it down right by the eyes. Do a loose turn to make sure it just holds the materials in place, get it nice and centered. Do one more to tighten it down, center it again if you need. And then I cross under the eyes and do a wrap to make sure it locks it down. Then I'm going to pull those top fibers and those back fibers together, kind of straight where the hook point is. Bring my thread and capture that crystal. Do a few turns to make sure it's nice and tight down. And then I'm going to measure this flash, and I'll bring it this side, that way you can see, but I want it to be just about the length, if not just a little bit longer than those tail fibers. So I'll go ahead and trim it right about there. Just like so. So now that we have our flash in, we're going to go ahead and do our secondary color or main color for the Clouser, and I'm going to do an olive, yet again using Bucktail. And just like we did before, these ones were a little bit longer than the first one I cut off, so I just put the Bucktail towards the side of the eye that's facing me. It makes it a little bit easier to tie in. Do 2 to 3 wraps to make sure it's pretty tight. And then really cinch it down. Make sure it's nice and even. Then we can go ahead, pull these fibers up and try to trim them off as flat as possible. As close to the thread without cutting the thread. And then fully tighten those fibers in, tie those fibers in. This will also kind of give us the taper for the head of it, which is nice. Just like so. And then from here, it looks a little messy, which is fine. We're gonna play with it afterwards. I like to basically just make sure I like the look of the nose and the head and everything. So I'm just gonna hit it with a bit more wraps. And I didn't say earlier, but the thread I'm using is gonna be a white 50D Nano silk by Semperfli. That's kind of the profile I like. Then we're just gonna do our whip finish. And with this, you can even kind of build the profile too if you need, but I like to just do a good amount of whip finishes. Pull it down, make sure it's really tight on there. Cut our thread. And then I like to seal the deal with a little bit of Zap-A-Gap right on the top, just to make sure that the strength of this fly is going to hold up. And then we have our Clouser in a white and olive. Super great pattern for saltwater, freshwater, warm water even. It's just a super great all-around pattern. This is one of my favorite colorways to tie it in. So if you haven't already, definitely check it out. It's a super, super cool pattern.